Welcome to Humble Beginnings, a podcast where we uncover the unconventional, more relatable paths to success. In this show, we'll share the stories before the C-suites, board memberships, and appointments, the stories of various upbringings, first jobs, career pivots, educational uncertainties, and more. This is the place to hear about their lives from the GovCon executives themselves. We hope you enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Humble Beginnings. I'm your host, Amanda Ziadeh, and joining me today to co-host is Mark HuYoung, Managing Partner of Executive Advisory firm Northwind Partners. How are you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing well. Thanks for allowing me to join you, Amanda.
Of course. Thanks for joining. And we're excited to be joined by our guest, Todd Stottlemyer, CEO of Acentra Health and longtime technology and healthcare executive. Thank you so much for being here today to share your story with us, Todd.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Mark. Great to be with you.
So I typically start with asking about your upbringing and family life, but I'd love to first ask about your father, as I know his background influenced your perspective a lot. So tell us a bit about how your dad grew up and how his educational and professional path impacted you at a young age.
Sure. Yeah, my dad grew up in southern Pennsylvania during the Depression and World War II. Neither of his parents finished high school. After he graduated from high school, my dad enlisted in the Army as a private, and he served 3 years and was honorably discharged as a corporal. After the Army, my dad took advantage of a wonderful opportunity provided by the GI Bill to become the first person ever in his family to attend and graduate from college. And the Army also had a very profound impact on my dad's view of civil rights. He simply didn't understand how someone who served in the Army with him would be forced to sit in a different part of a restaurant or use a different restroom or use a different water fountain simply because of the color of their skin. And that was a profound thing for my dad because, as I said, he became a real active civil rights leader. After my dad graduated from college, he again used the GI Bill to work through a master's and doctorate program in international relations, which led to a career in the U.S. Foreign Service at the U.S. State Department, the U.S. Mission in New York, and the United Nations. My dad also became a very active civil rights leader during the 1960s. I would say because of my dad's very humble upbringing, he's always emphasized to me the importance of hard work and perseverance, as well, I think very importantly, respect for everyone. His experience at the United Nations exposed me to people from many countries and really gave me a great appreciation for different cultures, and I'm really grateful for this.
All right, wonderful. And I understand, Todd, you grew up just outside New York City. So what was that like for you and your siblings at the time? What kind of things were you into, activities, lifestyle? Tell us a bit about that.
I grew up in southern Westchester County, just a few miles from downtown Manhattan. We lived in a duplex without a yard, so most sports were played on the streets, including touch football, which turned into be tackle football. I started playing baseball at a very young age and then played for the local Pop Warner football team in Eastchester, New York. I loved the camaraderie of playing team sports and decided in the eighth grade that I wanted to earn a scholarship to play football in college, which I ultimately did. I also remember starting to read the New York Times at a very young age and would often compete with my dad to read the paper before he did. I can say, growing up in New York, I had everything I needed and wanted: a football, a baseball glove, a bat, and a ball. Obviously, life was a lot simpler back then, and having that football, baseball glove, bat, and ball was all I needed. So I had a really great upbringing in New York.
Awesome. No iPad or
No
iPhone.
iPad, no iPhone, no internet, nothing of the sort. It was real simple. I had a football, baseball glove, and bat and ball. So that was it.
That's awesome. And I understand your dad also instilled in you a value for hard work. And this kind of ties back to the New York Times. What was your very first job and what did it teach you at such a young age about hard work?
Yeah, my dad, because of his family, they weren't of means at all. In fact, we're very poor. He started working at a very young age to support his family, including picking peaches in the peach orchards of southern Pennsylvania. Because of this, my dad was determined that I would learn the value of hard work. And when I was very young, this usually meant working for him on Saturdays as we went about doing various repairs to our home, car, and anything else my dad thought needed work. Jobs that he thought wouldn't take much time often ended up taking hours to complete. But I did learn a lot from him on those Saturdays. When I was 13, my dad decided I needed a real job. And the job required me to be up well before the sun came up and walk into town to carry the bundles of the various sections of the New York Times into the town stationery store, and then spend the next 6 to 8 hours assembling the Sunday New York Times for purchase. I was paid, I think $1.50 an hour, maybe less than that. I got a free lunch in New York. A sub was called a wedge. I got a wedge at the end of the day. I also needed an immediate shower after I was done because I was covered in black ink from assembling the paper. So I like to say my first job was an assembly line job, putting together the Sunday New York Times for sale on Sunday morning.
That's awesome.
You seem to have carried that work ethic till this day, Todd. So kudos to your dad for instilling that in you. As a young teen, you led your first political campaign in New York City, which sounds like it helped kickstart an interest in politics. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was actually the town where I grew up in Bronxville, just outside New York City. The town was really built out, and so there was very little open space. But there was one open space known as the Rock Pile, where a lot of us kids, myself a kid at the time, played and explored. The town had decided to develop it and put in multi-tenant housing. So I, along with some other very audacious 13-year-olds, led a petition to put the issue to a referendum in the town. And we actually went out and we organized and we went door to door and got signatures. We started this campaign that was eventually supported by several key adults to save open space in the town. We got on the ballot and we won. And it really, I remember the local paper reported this was started by a bunch of 13-year-old kids who wanted a place to play other than playing in the streets. And we were successful. So that was my first political campaign. It was a successful campaign and had a lot of fun at it.
That's fantastic. Is that rock pile still there, Todd, or has it been developed since then?
As far as I know, I went up several years ago with my family. We went to the town where I grew up, and it was still there. It had not been developed. So that space had been preserved. And in this town, they probably haven't built a new home in 50 years. So there's no place to build, whether single family homes or townhouses or apartments or condominiums. So as far as I know, the space is still open space because of this referendum in 1976 that a bunch of 13-year-olds led.
Oh, man, that's fantastic. So there was another moment during your childhood that solidified that interest in politics as well. And ironically, it was on a trip to William and Mary where you would later end up attending undergrad. Talk to us about that trip.
Yeah, every year is the eighth grade class at my school traveled from New York in October for a week in Williamsburg to visit the colonial capital. And the last day of my eighth grade trip was the day that then President Ford debated then Governor Carter at Phi Beta Kappa Hall on the campus of William and Mary. Now, the town was full of excitement because of the impending presidential debate with Governor Carter and President Ford coming to the small city of Williamsburg. I had a chance to go on to William and Mary's campus during the week that we were there, and I really fell in love with the beauty of the campus and also the history of the city and the university. President Washington, President Jefferson, President Monroe, President Tyler, all got their education at William and Mary. So that was pretty exciting. The campus is beautiful, and the history is really something that no other place has. The trip became a truly special one when the buses carrying 115 eighth graders back to New York actually stopped at the White House. And our teachers hustled us out of the buses and through security at the White House onto the White House lawn to participate in a departure ceremony as President Ford left Washington, D.C. to fly to Williamsburg to debate Governor Carter. And President Ford, he worked the rope lines on the White House lawn, and eighth graders, we got a chance to shake his hand. And obviously that was a very, very cool experience. I later learned that the father of one of my classmates, former Congressman and U.S. Senator Charlie Goodell from New York, had arranged all this. He happened to be Jerry Ford's best friend when they served in the House. Kind of as an interesting aside, my classmate's brother is Roger Goodell, the current commissioner of the National Football League. So it was Roger's father who had arranged this chance for a bunch of eighth graders, 13-year-olds, to meet the President of the United States as he left Washington, D.C. to go to Williamsburg to debate Governor Carter. And needless to say, that trip to Williamsburg was the Williamsburg trip and the trip to Washington, D.C., that was a memorable one for somebody who's 13 years old.
Absolutely. What a cool way to kind of inspire the young generation to join public service later in life. If I were 13 and I got to visit the White House, I think that would be really awesome.
Well, the neat thing was later in life, I actually got a chance to be with President Ford again. And I told him, you would never remember me, but I certainly remember you when I met you on the White House lawn.
That's awesome.
Wow.
So cool. It's funny how things come full circle.
Mm-hmm.
So when your father was transferred to the DC area, in the late 70s, I believe, and you moved to Northern Virginia for high school, which I'm sure was a bit jarring for a New Yorker, a little bit of the South. What were your educational and extracurricular activities and interests, and how did that help shape your early educational decisions?
Yeah, as you said, we did move to Northern Virginia when I was in high school, and the region was very different than it is today. I mean, it was very southern. At that point in my life, I was a New York kid who loved New York City and the New York Yankees, and Northern Virginia, the 1970s, was very different than it is today. Not good or bad, but just very different. And it did take some adjusting for this New York kid to fit in. But I was fortunate to play both football and baseball, and quickly, made a lot of new friends. I was a very serious student in high school and also continued my love for team sports. I was fortunate to play on some really great high school football and baseball teams for really great coaches. This included a trip to the state championship football game my senior year, where we lost a close game to the Hampton Crabbers that went 14-0 that year and just had a fantastic team. Probably the most important thing that happened to me during high school was meeting my future wife, Elaine, who was actually my high school biology partner. She loved biology and cutting up frogs and things like that. I did not. So I was happy to have a biology partner that did that. 45 years later, and after almost 38 years of marriage, we've now been blessed with 4 children and a grandson. But that was the best thing that came out of high school was
Wow.
my future wife.
Todd, not many people are going to have the story of, hey, where did you meet your better half? Well, we fell in love over dissecting frogs.
Yeah. Well, we did all the love, but she did all the dissection because I had absolutely no interest in doing that.
That's fantastic. You doing what you did at 13 years old, preserving that piece of your city. And then you mentioned earlier just the interest and the rich political history at William and Mary. Obviously, you have had a proclivity for that at a young age, but I know that's certainly continued to be an interest for you as the years have gone by. Tell us a little bit more about the progression of your education that kind of followed high school. You shared a little bit about what motivated you, at least at a young age, to have interest in William and Mary. But was there anything else that kind of motivated you or pushed you into the decision to go to W&M, and then maybe later Georgetown Law, and then beyond that?
Sure. Yeah, I was fortunate to be recruited to play football in college by several schools, and I did earn a full scholarship to William and Mary to play football. In addition to falling in love with the campus during my 8th grade field trip to Williamsburg, my dad's influence, his strong emphasis on the importance of education and being a true student athlete, weighed very heavily on my decision to attend William and Mary rather than some other schools where athletics were probably more important than academics. So I initially had a list of schools that I was interested in, and he kind of revised that list. And instead of these schools recruit you, I would be very supportive of you're attending one of those schools because I really want you to make sure you focus on academics and use your athletic ability and the chance to get a full scholarship to go to a really good academic school that balances and really emphasizes the importance of academics with athletics, but not instead of athletics or instead of academics. So that was very important. After my junior year at William and Mary, I interned for then U.S. Senator Paul Tribble. And as you know, I've always been interested in government and politics, and I really did enjoy that internship. The Tuesday after I graduated from William and Mary, I actually started a position as deputy policy director for Wyatt Durrett's campaign to become governor of Virginia. Fun little aside: Wyatt Durrett's son actually writes most of the lyrics for the Zac Brown band. So there's a fun little side there. But Wyatt Durrett, he lost the election to then a Virginia Attorney General Jerry Baliles in the general election, and kind of in a kind of full circle, ironic twist of fate. Governor Baliles would become a really good friend of mine over the years until his passing a few years ago. So I worked for his opponent, and we became great friends. And Governor Baliles always said I was just young and immature, didn't know better, which was kind of fun. But after the internship and started my business career, I actually went back to Georgetown University for law school while I was working full time at my first company, BDM International. I worked every day. I attended classes 4 to 5 nights a week and on Saturdays, and it was a grind for 4 years, but I really did enjoy my time at Georgetown and made some lifelong friends while I was there.
Let me pull on the thread. You mentioned BDM and the kind of the start of your professional birth, if you will. Talk a little bit more about the trajectory of your professional career, and Todd, if you can, and share some pivotal moments that led you from one role to the next.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'll talk more in detail, but everything I've done in my career has had some connectivity to something that happened before, some person or something that related. So I think that's I've always found that kind of interesting. I think feel very fortunate about that. My career really did all start because of that internship for Senator Tribble, and the person who was in charge of the intern program was a former William and Mary grad, Bill Mims, and Bill would go on to be the Attorney General of Virginia and a member of the Virginia Supreme Court. He liked athletes that played at William and Mary. I think, having gone to school there, he knew it wasn't easy to be an athlete, and also somebody who really cared about academics as well. So he picked me for that internship, and we have a great friendship to this day. During that internship, during that summer, I did a research project for Senator Tribble's state director. Her name was Judy Peachy, and Judy Peachy was one of the first women nationally to run a U.S. Senate campaign. She ran the U.S. Senate campaign for Senator John Warner, and then the campaign for Senator Paul Tribble. Both were successful in getting elected. After Durrett lost the gubernatorial election, it was Judy who actually told me about the opening at BDM International, a technology company headquartered in Tysons Corner, Virginia at the time. I interviewed and got the job working in the general counsel's office for George Newman, an executive who led the company's government and regulatory affairs work. So that's how I got my first job. I spent the next 13 years working at BDM. It was a fabulous place to grow up professionally. BDM was one of a very small number of companies that was a publicly traded company on two separate occasions. The company, interestingly, was also one of the Carlyle Group's first management buyouts and private equity investments, and obviously that comes full circle later. I was very fortunate to move up in the company and become a member of the executive team, reporting to the CEO, first Earl Williams, and then Phil Odeen, until the company was sold to TRW in 1997. And George Newman, Earl Williams, and Phil Odeen, they were great mentors who really helped me as a young person develop as a leader. And I would certainly say I owe a lot to all three of them for all the great support and mentoring that they provided me. After BDM was sold to TRW and we completed the integration process, I left to join BTG, another locally headquartered, publicly traded technology company led by Ed Bursoff, someone I had met initially through the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce and who I had worked with closely to help establish the Northern Virginia Technology Council in 1990. And kind of going full circle or forward, both Ed and I would eventually chair both the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce and the Northern Virginia Technology Council. At BTG, I served as Chief Financial and Administrative Officer, and the company was eventually sold to Titan Corporation. After BTG, I served as president of McGuire Woods Consulting and worked for Frank Atkinson, who was the same person I had worked for on the Durrett for Governor campaign. So you can see the relationships and the importance of that. I was at McGuire Woods Consulting on September 11th, 2001. Three of my friends died that day. And I think, like for many of us, 9/11 was a seminal moment in my life. And for me, it really led to some real soul searching about what I wanted to do in my career. And I decided then that I wanted to go build a business and lead it as CEO. And I was fortunate to join with my longtime friend and dear colleague, Paul Leslie, to develop a business plan and get investment support from Arlington Capital Partners to build Apogee Technologies, an information technology company that we later sold to Kinetic, which interestingly was then backed by the Carlyle Group. After selling Apogee, I had a non-compete. I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do. It ended up interviewing for a job as CEO of the National Federation of Independent Business, or NFIB, then the largest business association in Washington, D.C. The search was being done by Korn Ferry and Lorraine Lavitt, who I had met when she was president of the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce, then the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce. So again, the connections there as well. I got to do some really neat things at NFIB, including working and meeting with members of Congress and governors and the President of the United States, then President Bush, on several occasions to discuss and advocate for issues important to small and medium-sized businesses, including, very importantly, healthcare. And this job did involve a lot of travel. And with our kids getting into middle school and high school, I eventually decided to get off the road and look for a leadership role that required less travel. Given the work on healthcare at NFIB, I was really interested in the healthcare industry and received an offer from the CEO of the Innova Health System to join the organization as a senior executive. And I spent 2 years there before joining a private equity-backed company as CEO of Acentra, also an information technology company with a strong focus on the healthcare market. And as you know, Acentra was sold to Maximus in 2015. After that sale of Acentra, I returned back to the Inova Health System as the CEO of the new Center for Personalized Health, which included Inova's Cancer Institute, the Inova Translational Medicine Institute, and all of our clinical research programs. It was a wonderful job, and I met and worked with some of the most talented, gifted, and committed colleagues that I've ever had the privilege of working with during my entire career. And it was really I was very fortunate to be in that leadership position. It was really my 2 times at Inova, an interest in healthcare, that ultimately led me to my current position as CEO of Acentra Health, a healthcare technology and solutions and services company that is headquartered here in Northern Virginia with a global workforce of almost 3,000 employees. We are backed by the Carlyle Group, the same organization that backed my first company, BDM International, and also the same organization that backed Kinetic, which purchased Apogee Technologies, the company I started with Paul Leslie. And interestingly, the chair of the Acentra Health board is Donna Maria, a very long-time friend, colleague, and a great mentor to me, who also previously chaired the Northern Virginia Technology Council. And I first met Donna back when she was at AMS, an executive there. She wanted to be president of CGI, but really got to know each other when she was the chair of the Northern Virginia Technology Council. I would say this, throughout my career, I have been blessed with really outstanding mentors, including the ones I mentioned earlier from my time at BDM, George Newman, Phil O'Dean, and Earl Williams, Ed Bursoff, the CEO of BTG, Mike Daniels, a longtime executive at SAIC, and really a true technology pioneer, Milt Peterson, who built the Peterson companies, and then I mentioned Donna Maria, my current board chair at Acentra Health. And these individuals have, they've just given me enormous amounts of their time, their wisdom, and really helped, I think, make me a better leader. And they've certainly been instrumental in whatever success I've been enjoyed in life. And I'm certainly incredibly grateful to all of them for their support.
That's fantastic. Todd, a number of all the names you mentioned are so many of them are considered elder statesmen that have either, they've all kind of exited stage right. But there are also countless folks who consider you a mentor. Just talking normatively in the market, there are people who, gosh, Todd gave me great advice, or I asked Todd about this. When do you think that pivot happened where, you had so many great mentors along the way where then you started to become the mentor to other folks who are now in the C-suite or in leadership positions across the market?
I don't know when maybe that transition may have happened. I'm still getting mentored, by the way, by my mentors. So I may be mentoring others, but I'm still getting mentored because I still learn something new every day and continue to learn. Again, that was something culturally that I was just fortunate to have. And these individuals, they gave it a lot of their time. When I have had important decisions to make or, thinking about career direction or, whatever it is, personal issues, they've given of their time, and they were very generous with their time. So I've tried to pay that forward. If somebody calls me, even if I don't know them, I'll try to, and they're looking for some help or advice. I'll try to respond and be as helpful as I can, because I had a lot of folks who really helped me in my own career and continued helping me in my career. So to the extent that I can, pay it forward, I'm happy to do it, because I benefited enormously from people who cared a lot about me and who were great mentors to me.
Awesome. And the more and more interviews we have with executives, I learn those transitional moments in most careers happen because of mentors and people who have helped along the way. So thanks for sharing those with us, Todd. Those are always really interesting for me too, as a, still thinking about career and life. It's good the transitions are really good to know and hear about. So.
Well, one of the best comments somebody made to me is, I will share with you the scars of my experience. So I tell people that said, I'm happy to share with you the scars of my experience and tell you what didn't work well. And hopefully you don't make the same mistakes I made.
Exactly. That's what we're all just still learning, I think, until the day we die. So, and I know that, along with these transitional moments that impact our career, of course, there are obstacles and challenges and turning points. And I know, Todd, you mentioned your 3 friends that you lost during 9/11, all of which have, of course, influenced you in some way. But could you share some of those experiences with us at various points in your life and how they've impacted you?
Sure. Like for everyone, like life has its obstacles. And, For me, really, the first was when I was in high school. I suffered a very serious knee injury playing football that required surgery, and then I re-injured my knee again. And things were different back then. When you had a serious knee injury, a lot of people didn't recover from that. Today, fortunately, medicine is so much better. In having a serious knee injury, you can recover very quickly. I'd set a goal to play football in college and earn a scholarship. Is something I set that goal when I was in the 8th grade. I told my dad after a football game, I want to go do this. And at the time, I think I was about 5'7" and about 150 pounds. So that may not be good. As maybe a little overambitious. Fortunately, I had good genes and I grew to be much bigger, so I could play football in college. But after I got hurt, both of these injuries, one was very serious, and then I got hurt again. It kind of put my goal and dream in doubt. And at the time of my first injury, I was fortunate to receive a very long handwritten letter from a former Pop Warner football coach in New York. And he really challenged and inspired me to overcome my injury. And it came at just the perfect time because I was pretty down. I think I got hurt. I had surgery. Then I got mono. I missed school for a month. And, I was kind of down. And whether or not I could play football in high school again or, forgetting college was uncertain. But I got that letter at the perfect time. And, I was able to overcome the injury through a lot of hard work and rehabilitation and running stairs until I, couldn't run them anymore and things like that. And I was fortunate to later earn that scholarship. And I will always be grateful for that coach's support. He's living because you never know when you can touch somebody in such a meaningful way. And I was really down, and I got that note from that coach and said, "You can do this. I know it's going to be hard, but you can do it." So that was kind of the first time. On a more profound way, my younger sister suffered from depression at a very young age, and she later died by suicide. And she was a beautiful girl, a great sister, and she had mental health issues, and she had depression. And I think her death really made me realize how, at a young age, how fleeting that life can be. I think of my sister every day. And I am grateful that we are much more open today talking about mental health. You didn't talk about mental health when she started with her challenges, but today we're much more open about that. And I think hopefully by being more open, we can save lives and not have, people have to go through what my family did when you lose a family member died by suicide. The other thing you mentioned before, the deaths of my 3 friends on 9/11. And it was hard because they were young. They had young families, young kids. And as I said earlier, it was a time of great reflection for me, and it led me to want to start, lead, and build a company with my longtime friend, Paul Leslie. I think we're both incredibly proud of the company we built, Apogee Technologies, and the critically important work the company did for defense and homeland security customers. One of the things my wife, I was trying to do something that hopefully had an impact for my friends that had died, and my wife suggested, why don't you write a letter to their kids? And so I sat down and I wrote 3 long letters to the children of the fathers who died in the Pentagon. It was hard to do, but I to this day, I'm grateful to my wife that she asked me to do that, because I think I was able to share with their then young kids, and hopefully they continue to read those letters year after year, that what their father was like and how much their father meant to me and how much of an impact they had on my life, and obviously how much I missed them. But importantly, I know how much they were going to miss their father. So I thank for my wife for having giving me that idea to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thank you for sharing those moments with us. I know it's
Mm-hmm.
tough probably to reflect on and talk about. So I really appreciate it, and discussing the way that it's impacted you and the things that you've carried from them. I know, like you mentioned, Todd family is number one for you, very important. So now that we understand a bit more about your background and what's shaped you and the things that you've experienced, tell us a bit about your family today.
Well, I've been married, as I mentioned, to my high school sweetheart, Elaine, for almost 38 years. That'll be in December. And I've known her for 45 years, since she was dissecting frogs and I was watching.
Wow, congrats, Todd.
Thank you very much. She was much better at dissection. She actually majored in biology in college. It was perfect for her, but not for me. In addition to being a really wonderful mom, she's also an exceptionally talented and amazing public school counselor. She went back and got a second master's degree when she was 46 or 47, still raising kids. And it was a 4-year program, got the master's degree, and then went back
Wow.
to work as a public school counselor at the age of 50. And I won't say how old she is because I probably get in trouble, but she's been doing it now for several years. And again, I'm always in awe of what she does, because what she does, I I'm grateful for what I do, but 500 kids in the school, and there's only one counselor, so I'm always impressed by what she does. We have 4 grown children, and all 4 of them actually work in the technology sector. We were also blessed when another young man came into our life and family when he was 15 years old. And he just graduated in May from Christopher Newport University, and he is about to start his first full-time job in about 10 days. So he was the first person in his family to ever go to college. And we're just so excited for him and what he's been able to do and his career now starting just in a few weeks here. So very importantly, we are blessed with a 4-year-old grandson. And I love being a parent of 5 children, and my wife does too. But I tell you what, having a grandson is just the best thing in the whole world. So we're blessed with a 4-year-old grandson. His birthday is this
Wow.
weekend, and his name is Brooks.
That's fantastic. I'm sure you don't spoil Brooks at all.
He is very, very sweet.
That's
That's
awesome.
great.
We're
Yeah.
going to pass on the tradition and making sure he understands hard work too.
That's right. That's right.
Well, yeah, congratulations on all of that. It's very, very exciting. And I hear being a grandparent is very fun.
It
So,
is. It is.
yeah.
It's easy. It's easier than being a parent because if things don't go well, you give them back to mom and dad.
Right.
That's right.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, Todd, as you look back on your life and, have you exceeded any of the expectations that you may have originally set for yourself or didn't know were possible?
I don't think I set a set of expectations. I think I've hopefully always been open to the idea that a door is going to open and take advantage of it when that door opens. And certainly I've been supported by a lot of people, my family, those mentors, throughout my life. And I think any success I've had, I really attribute to some certainly hard work on my part, but the support of my family and the support of my mentors. One of my mentors did urge me. He said, go live a life of significance. He said, if you live a life of significance, success can come, but really focus on living a life of significance and, be a good leader, a strong servant leader, be a great teammate, be a great colleague, be a great citizen, love your family. I hope I've done that. I've certainly tried to do that every day of my life and hopefully continue to do that going forward.
It's fantastic.
Awesome.
Todd, thanks for sharing insight into your journey. It's obviously in the market they know there's so many that know Todd Stottlemyer, the successful CEO, but just hearing about your background and the twists and turns and the things that you've experienced really just serves to it's an encouragement to folks. This didn't just come easy to you. This is something that you worked for. This is something that you built a life upon, that you engaged in. And so we always ask at the end, it's because there are younger folks listening to this and they want to know how they can get through a journey and get to a place where you are. Any words of wisdom for young execs or the next generation of leaders that you'd like to share or that you want to share?
So wisdom makes me sound old. So I'll say maybe I'll share a couple of perspectives. How's that? As if I'm not sure I'm entitled to provide wisdom, but maybe a couple of perspectives. I would encourage young executives to be lifelong learners. As I said, I'm learning something new every day, every week. To be intellectually curious, ask a lot of questions. I think people ask great questions. I think you can judge somebody by the quality of the questions they ask, and also be strong servant leaders where they put others first. I would also, just my own career, I would strongly urge them to seek out strong mentors who will help them grow and develop as leaders, and who, very importantly, will also give them, candid feedback and advice. I found that to be invaluable. People who care enough about you that feel that they can give you very candid feedback and advice to help you become a stronger leader and hopefully be more successful in whatever you're doing. These mentors, what I like to call them, my personal board of directors. As I said, they've been instrumental in my career. They've been important to my progression. They've been there to support me in good times and difficult times, and I'm grateful for that. I would say, very importantly, I would urge these younger executives. One of my favorite phrases is that life is not a dress rehearsal. There are no practice rounds. I would encourage them to be their best authentic self, to be empathetic, and also be open to the sometimes unexpected doors that will open in front of them that they did not expect. That certainly happened to me. And, you have an opportunity to take advantage of that or make a choice or not. I think finally, I would say, another thing I like to say, it wasn't my original thought. Somebody actually said this to me, and there's a nice kind of poetry about this. But yeah, I would urge them and encourage them to remember their dash. And I've taught at a couple business schools, and I always finish with this. And they look at me and say, "What the heck are you talking about? Remember your dash?" And I said, "Well, there are 2 dates on either side of the dash, and there is certainty about both of those dates. To the left will be the year that you were born, and to the right will be the year you die. And your dash is really your life. And what do you do with that dash?" And I was always encouraged to, make it a life not only of success, but more important, a life of significance. And I'm still trying to do that, and I would certainly encourage them to do that as well.
That's fantastic advice, Todd. Thank you.
Beautiful note to end on. And Todd, thank you again so much for sharing your story with us, these impactful and influential moments in your life, and for joining me on today's show. I really appreciate it. And Mark, thanks so much for helping me host. It's been really wonderful.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks. Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Like what you hear? Make sure to subscribe to Humble Beginnings on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and get notified when new episodes are released. Thanks for listening.